Forever. Dog.
Well, Joe, it was a big week in the news this week. A lot of stuff going on with major consequences for human society. But perhaps the biggest headline of all, the biggest headline of the week came to us courtesy of Martha Stewart. I don't know if you heard this. Martha Stewart revealed one of Hollywood's big secrets, a secret that many people have kept guarded. Like in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that guy who guards all the cups and chalices.
What's the secret?
Ryan Reynolds, her neighbor in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Is not funny. You heard it here from Martha's lips to your ears. Ryan Reynolds, our favorite quip king, the guy who saved the Marvel Cinematic Universe and comedy and the movies. Solely by by his sense of humor.
The Merc with the mouth.
In real life, he's not funny.
He's just
not funny, says Martha Stewart.
Well, he just plays Deadpool in the movies, okay?
Why
has he got to be funny?
That's what Martha's saying. She goes, and look, people are, I don't know if this is even an insult. I think Martha's just trying to clarify the situation.
It's an insult. He's not funny. What's
here's
her
what
quote?
She said. This is the actual
say?
quotation. And this was from, I don't know if you know the game show Rent Free. I don't know if you've seen that before. It can only be streamed on the real estate app Built. If you go to Built, if you download the real estate app Built, BILT. BILT, yeah, do it right now. Download the real estate app.
You keep
Built.
going, but I am. Okay.
And then they will probably
show?
have like a tab for original content. You go there and then you look for a game show called Rent Free. That's where she dropped this bomb. The best thing that ever happened to Built. She said,
Built rewards.
I think the host was like, tell me what are some celebrities that you pal around with? Tell me a funny story, Martha.
Yeah, here's a funny story.
Martha starts talking about Ryan Reynolds, and she goes, you want to know something? This is the exact quote. You want to know something? He's not so funny in real life.
Oh.
No, he's not so funny. He's very serious.
Oh, okay.
He's very serious.
I think it's more insight than criticism.
This confirms everything I've always thought about Ryan, that this is the humor is like a focus group tested stratagem to market this man to the widest audience possible. He has like, when he's being funny in his Mint Mobile advertisements and Deadpool and Wolverine, on the red carpet, doesn't it always feel like a like practiced, rehearsed, honed imitation of humor rather than someone who's like naturally funny?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like Jack Black could just like turn his head and look at you and you would laugh.
Yes. No, Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds is...
He practices.
It's fine. Like you don't have to be... But I think it would be different because this is something you hear about, like the tears of the clown. Like this is like a trope, right? Mm-hmm. But usually that trope is reserved for like our great comedians. Like if you are one of our great comedians... Right. We know, whoever be Robin Williams, whatever, we like, you're given the sort of dignity of not being funny all the time. You're allowed to sort of clock out. But Ryan Reynolds, I don't know if he gets that privilege. I feel like Ryan Reynolds does need to be funny at parties. Like, it's like, you can't be the sad, serious guy at the party.
Right.
You gotta put on your fucking tap dancing shoes and tap dance.
Right. You're talking to Martha Stewart. Let's see a little bit of the act.
Say
Ryan.
Something funny.
Yeah.
Ryan.
We don't need earthy, real Ryan. Right. You're a mouthpiece.
Ryan was taken off guard by this, though, and it feels like he's sort of like short-circuited for a second because he had a little quippy response on Twitter that I've been trying to... This is like the Finnegan's Wake of tweets. I cannot get to the bottom of what this means, Joe. So this is his response. He wrote on Twitter, @VanCityReynolds.
Okay.
I disagree with her, Martha Stewart. I would disagree with her. I'm going to punch this up a little bit. I would disagree with her. But I tried that once. The woman is unexpectedly spry. She really closed the gap after a mile or so. Joe, what the fuck does that mean?
Sounds like some sort of Hamptons race took place.
Right.
And he was being chased by her or Martha Stewart was mad at him. And he's so serious. Does it have to do with like the fact that he's not funny, he's serious in some capacity? Go ahead, read it one more time.
I disagree with her. Like, I would say, like, no, I am funny. But I tried that once. The woman is
I tried to
unexpectedly
be funny to Martha Stewart, but she's
She
unexpectedly
really-
spry.
So she, like,
when I
chased
wasn't
him?
funny, she lunged at me. She lunged at me for a long time. So far, it might have stretched over a couple miles in some sort of chase. Because then he said, "What was the next sentence?"
She really closed the gap after a mile or so.
She really closed the gap. Maybe we're just out on the loop on some
But
either
this would
in joke
imply
or
that
sort. Yeah.
he got like a really good head start.
Well.
And then she started to close the gap.
Well,
after
he's
a
saying
mile?
I'm younger than she. Perhaps I just felt like I would be able to outpace her easily, but she's so
It's like
mad.
a tortoise in the hare situation.
She's so mad, or she's so spry, which isn't like a mad word. I'm kind of layering the mad on here because I don't know why he's being chased by her. But like she's unexpectedly fast is what he's saying, and she almost caught me and beat me up in some way, shape, or form because I wasn't performing up to her standards of funniness. Maybe this is one of those weird things where like we don't understand, but like she's of a higher status than he, and he must make her laugh or something. You know, it's some sort of like weird, twisted Hollywood.
I feel like
money
he's just
game.
proving her point though with this like bizarre, ornate response.
Yeah,
Here's what you should have said: all capital letters. Fuck Martha Stewart. All capital letters.
Wow.
Right? That's fun though. Like it's not. He doesn't.
Right.
It's
He doesn't.
fun,
Okay.
Right. And then she has her little because Martha loves getting in the dirt on this.
But what did he mean?
In this tweet?
Yes.
I don't know. There's
What do you say next?
There was no like.
In the article you read about this, was there some sort of explanation?
This is
about
his
said
only
tweet?
response. Is this tweet?
Okay.
Now TMZ, that venerable news source, has reached out for further information.
Okay.
And they said a source close to Ryan tells TMZ the actor has made no secret about his anxious and racing mind. Racing.
His mind races.
Okay, but not the race that they went on in the tweet. A different.
Oh, interesting. Wait,
No.
what did you say?
His the actor has made no secret about his anxious and racing mind.
Okay, so he's saying like I have anxiety. So what was his quote? She's spry. Read the
I
tweet one more-
disagree with her,
disagree-
but I
disagree
tried
with
that once. The woman is unexpectedly
Tried
spry.
what once?
Disagreeing with her.
Okay, but she's unexpectedly spry.
She really closed the gap after a mile or so.
She really closed the gap after a mile or so. And
I
then
don't know. If you're listening,
and
if you
TMZ
can-
said, "Well, look, he's famously anxious." What?
But like anxious and like here's the thing though, like if he has anxiety, that's fine. We respect that.
Shut the fuck up, Brett.
I don't like the conflation of like
look, Ryan Reynolds has anxiety. That's okay.
And anxiety and his racing mind. It's like,
I
oh, he's so
understand.
much of a genius. He's got so many ideas going on.
But
please tell Martha Stewart a funny fucking anecdote at the Hamptons party that you both went to.
fair enough. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman will not be hosting the Oscars.
Is that
this year.
definitive?
He
Is
said
it because of this?
no. They were rumored because
Right, I saw
apparently
that.
the Oscar committee is desperate to find somebody to replace. And after
Honestly, it would have been a great pick. It's the second biggest movie of the year.
Well,
People
that was a
apparently
great-
love
it was a
those
great pick.
guys. Yeah.
After Kimmel passed and after Mulaney passed,
Right.
their favorite person to ask, they really wanted Jackman and Reynolds to do it. But now there's Ryan saying that he doesn't have the time, but he'd love to do it again some other time. This is like
he's got all his thoughts going on in his head. He wouldn't be able to focus.
He's
He'd
like,
get up
right.
there and he would be like, your line, Ryan. And Ryan would be like, oh, my racing mind has gotten away from me again.
So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe Martha Stewart should host the Oscars.
Martha,
actually a good
Martha
idea.
and Snoop.
Martha and Snoop should host the Oscars. That's actually a good idea.
Well,
Do you know who the funniest person to host the Oscars would be?
the funniest person to host the Oscars would be Jeff Bezos.
Kamala Harris. I want Kamala to host the Oscars. Okay, go ahead.
This week on Movies, baby, Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks are back. Where are they? They're here, of course. We'll review their new movie here. Plus, we saw a real pain from writer-director star Jesse Eisenberg and co-star Kieran Culkin. The new Zemeckis Hanks, as I refer to them.
Nice.
And of course, we've got the hottest Hollywood news and box office updates that your little bellies can hold, baby. And in the second half of the show, Joe, for Patreon subscribers only at patreon.com/moviesbaby with 5 eyes, we're going to be ranking our top 5 movies directed by Robert Zemeckis. Maybe our hardest list yet.
Easily our hardest list yet, because the question is, does he have 5 top movies?
Does he have 5 movies
Does he have
that
5
could
movies
qualify
that
for a
could-
top
that could-
5?
Exactly. We'll see how many he gets.
Something has to go into 5, but is it worthy of a top 5?
And we'll just say it up top for people that might want to listen to us have a larger conversation about Zemeckis. Just a little preview.
Okay.
I think that the guy, after watching all his movies this week, is like a very talented filmmaker. But I just don't know if he makes very good movies, Brett.
Interesting. Okay. That's Joe's take. You'll have to wait to see what my take is. That'll be in the second half of the show for Patreon subscribers only. But for the meantime, Joe, are you ready to kick this thing off?
You know it, Brett.
Then Margot, roll that theme song, please. Oh, there it is. I can't get enough movies, baby. I can't get enough movies, baby. But how about you? I'm talking to you. Do you have it bad too? I think that you do. Whenever one ends, it's like the death of a friend. I get to wishing that there were 2 more reels. And then a voice cries out, move, baby, you're in my seat, and you don't want to mess with who the Philly movie freak. Woo! There he is.
Yeah.
We're having a good week.
I can't get enough movies, baby. I can't get enough movies, baby. Yes, it's true. Oh, I've got it bad, too.
He's got it bad.
Every night of the year, like the moon, I appear at all the movie theaters all over town. Cut to black, roll credits. Whoa, baby, I'm lost in a fog. I need someone to talk to. Look, the Georgia movie dog.
Hi.
Dog, 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 dog.
I can't get enough movies, baby.
I can't get enough movies, baby.
I can't get enough movies, baby. Yeah!
Welcome to Movies, Baby, the weekly show where we break down the hottest movie news, review the latest releases, shout out forgotten classics, and prophesy the future of Hollywood. My name is Joe Cilio, a.k.a. the Philly Movie Freak, here as always with Brett Boehm, a.k.a. the Georgia Movie Dog.
Go Dogs! Joe, let's get right into it. There weren't any big tentpole releases this weekend. No big movies coming out this weekend. And the same goes for the next 2 weekends, unless you count Red 1, the Christmas action movie Red 1, which I don't think we're going to count as like a studio tentpole.
I wish I could, but
no.
Not in this serious conversation.
And the reason for that seems to be, obviously, Hollywood, the studios had reps out at all the Illuminati meetings. They knew Trump was going to win. So they're like, look, people are going to need at least 2 weeks to recover before they're willing to go see Wicked. So let's just phone it in for a couple weekends.
Red
what do we
1.
got? Let's do Red 1. Let's do Heretic.
Yep, Red 1.
The Hugh Assance is winding down. This is probably the end of it.
Give me a horror. Give me a Christmas.
So I don't know how much there is to learn from the money this week, but let's take a look anyway. Margot, can you show me the money? This is last weekend's box office. So the first thing that stands out, Venom: The Last Dance, the third and last in the Venom franchise, topped the box office for a second straight week, making an extra $26 million domestic. That brings it up to 95 total domestic. And it only had a 49% drop in week 2, which is really good. I mean, I think that's because of what we're talking about, that it just doesn't have a lot of competition right now. If you're someone who's like, I just want to go to what's the biggest movie of the week, the answer is going to be Venom until Wicked and Gladiator 2 come out. So it's definitely benefiting from not having much competition, obviously benefiting from the failure of Joker earlier in the month, which is already out on VOD and doing pretty shitty there, as we'll see in a little bit. And this is actually the best out of all these Sony Spider-Man Extended Universe movies. This is the lowest the lowest drop out of any of them. So the first 2 Venoms, Morbius, Madam Web, of course, all had drops over 50% going into their second week. But Venom is hanging in there despite not great critical reception, etc.
It's also, just to say it, doing absolutely tremendous overseas,
gangbusters,
amazing overseas numbers, like well over the domestic cume, making another financially successful installment of the Venom franchise. Sony keeps these franchises budgets kind of locked in at this like mid-high tier, $90 to $120 million. And that's when you start seeing returns. When you let that motherfucker slip up to 180, 200, you're about to lose your lunch unless you're, literally Marvel. So
like you said, internationally, it's up to 227 million. That is, I ranked them all. That's the 8th biggest international box office of the year. And this thing's only in its second week.
Yeah.
This thing's doing huge numbers internationally.
Apparently, this movie played in China, which not every movie gets to do, and it played huge in China, just like Alien Romulus did earlier in the year. So whenever China gets opened up to some of these movies, they're able to impact that market. They can see huge international returns. So congrats, Sony.
Congrats, because this is kind of amazing.
Sony needed a W this week, Brett,
They did
because they had another movie come out.
Are you talking about here?
I am talking about
here. Okay. We'll get to here in a second. I just want to say, this is kind of amazing because Venom 3 had like a soft opening weekend, much lower than the first two. Critical reception was pretty poor. And then we turn around at the end of the second week, this thing's a hit. On a $120 million budget, it's already at $322 million total.
Yeah.
This thing is well into profit in its second week. It's already... in total, domestic and international, it's already the 13th biggest movie of the year. I thought this was kind of a disappointment. It's really not. It's doing well. It did it.
I'm surprised as well, but I think it just goes to show that this is why studios spend all their time and energy the past decade trying to wrangle and retain these franchise IP plays, because more often than not, they can work out, especially when you're savvily budgeting like Sony has been.
It's all about the budget, baby. You keep
really,
that budget reasonable, you're gonna see profit.
Imagine if Joker was $85 million.
Yep. Yeah, we would not be having the same conversation about it.
Different thing.
Now, a movie that Sony put out that did not do as well, of course, is Robert Zemeckis' Here. And this is just a straight up bomb. Here bombed, and there's probably no hope for it. It opened in 5th place. It was the top performing opening new release of the week, but that's not really saying much. It opened at 5th place with a paltry $5 million. And it was in almost 3,000 theaters. So there's really no excuse for it doing this poorly. That's off a $45 million budget. It's also getting really bad reviews, 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, a B- cinema score grade, which sounds good, but is really bad for a cinema score. So word of mouth is not going to help here at all. This will probably plummet off the face of the earth going into its second week. It's funny because I was like, so is like Hanks done? Is the Hanks magic run out? I don't think this is on Hanks though, because the last movie he starred in, A Man Called Otto, remember that from 2022, where he was a cranky old kind of MAGA adjacent old man who had to learn to meet his neighbors, and love a child. It did $113 million on a $50 million budget, also distributed by Sony. So I'm sure Sony was like, "Oh, great, Hanks has still got the juice. We'll do a Forrest Gump reteam, and we'll make bank." Did not happen. What do you think? What do you think went wrong?
Not a Hanks issue.
Yeah.
What happened here is, over his past 3 or 4 releases, Zemeckis' particular brand of like saccharine Americana romanticism is just really not driving people's butts to seats, which is the complete opposite of his entire career of absolutely owning at the box office and being, the broad filmmaker that just collected W after W after W. In the past 5-10 years, his kinds of movies don't work, especially Here, which is formally ambitious, so much so that I can't imagine like marketing this was easy. Like, we saw the ads for Here many times. Like, it looks complicated, and it has that horrible Image Movers CGI sheen, and it looks sickly sweet. And the older movie-going audience isn't really looking for something so ambitious. They want to go see Conclave. They want to go see a true crime story. They want to go see a little mystery.
They're also not going to the movies 2 weekends in a row. So they went for Conclave the previous weekend, which did very well, particularly in older demographics. And they're like, what, am I going to go to the movies again this weekend to see Here? No.
It's such an odd choice for all the people involved. Like, it's not an odd choice to work with Zemeckis. It's not an odd choice to work with Hanks and Robin. It's not a weird choice to bring them all together. Or this is an IP adapted from a graphic novel. So there's lots of things here that make a lot of sense. It just didn't work out because it just didn't come together. It wasn't the movie. We'll talk about it later, but let's just say the reviews were mixed as hell.
Yeah.
Borderline bad.
Yeah.
And it was just like, if your movie comes out of the gate, looks difficult to understand, it's coming out election week when people's media attention is pretty
wrapped.
That's a
rough release.
And it's formally ambitious, aka kind of different, a little.
Right.
That's just a tough sell,
It's a
man.
tough sell. I do think, though, I'm with you. I think on paper, I understand why they greenlit this. Because at the end of the road, you see the trailer, we saw the movie. Like, you're like, of course this thing bombed. What the fuck is this? Why would anybody go see this? But on paper, I get it, because Hank's last movie made money for Sony. Now they're going to reteam him with the Forrest Gump crew. I get it, but it just didn't come together.
It just
the movie's
didn't work.
not there, and people kind of sniffed out that this was not worth seeing in theaters.
There's no like Tom Hanks is going to win an Oscar for it. It's just
Right.
It's
It had
nothing.
none of that.
It's nothing.
It had no story or message or like marketing strategy. Yeah. In better news, though, Anora continues its strategic ramp up as we enter award season. It added another 200 theaters this week and maintained a very impressive per theater. Dollar amount was $7,000 per theater. Again, the highest per theater. I think it's had the highest per theater numbers for 3 weeks in a row now. It's closing in on 10 million total worldwide, and it still hasn't really gotten a wide release. I don't know if it's going to get like a super wide release.
Well, it'll keep growing. They are in the driver's seat right now, Neon, and they're going to play this thing out perfectly until Oscar time.
Yeah.
It'll get a much wider release. We might see it in something more akin to the 1,500, 2,000 theaters.
This is like old school distribution.
This is a real thought out strategy that has worked for Neon in the past, worked for distributors in the past, and has led to box office returns for sure, and it's also led to award season victories.
I agree. So they're going to sort of ramp up the release in conjunction with the For Your Consideration campaign and award season, and this will end up being in more and more theaters over time.
Yeah, it'll continue
it's
to grow.
easily going to be Sean Baker's biggest box office movie of all time. Florida Project at 11. This is already at 10.
Yeah.
So this is going to be Sean's biggest movie. Congratulations. It's a good one. You can go to our episode from 2 weeks ago to get a review of Anora. And speaking of micro budget successes, Terrifier 3 remained in the top 10 this week. I'm gonna throw some insane stats at you, Joe. Terrifier 3 is now over 50 million total. This is a movie that costs less than $3 million to make. It's over 50 million total for its run, making it the biggest unrated movie of all time, the highest grossing unrated movie of all time. And it is on track, Joe, to make more money domestically than Joker Folia Do. Joker Folia Do capped out at 59.
Damn.
Terrifier 2 is not slowing down. And because of the Christmas thing, it's only going to sort of remain
Hey,
relevant,
good point.
right?
There might
It's a
be a
Halloween
nice
movie
little-
and a Christmas movie. They're doing
Smart.
the Nightmare Before Christmas sort of double dip.
Oh.
So this thing will beat Joker Folia Do. It'll have a bigger domestic box office than Joker Folia Do.
Fuck.
If I told you that a month ago, you would tell me I'm crazy.
I would tell you.
You would tell me, you're drunk
Sounds
on the
good.
Yeah, we get it. You like Terrifier. It's not going to happen.
yeah.
It's happening. It
crazy.
happened.
Good.
Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it.
And speaking of Joker 2, after its absolute bomb at in its theatrical release, the film already got shipped off to VOD last week, the same month that it released in theaters. They're trying to figure out some way to turn a quick profit from it, but the disappointments keep on coming for Todd Phillips and company and everybody over at Warner Brothers, because Folia Do had an incredibly disappointing first week on VOD. Because remember, even Horizon had a debuted at #1 on VOD, right?
Lots of stuff.
Lots of
debuts
stuff,
well
right.
on VOD.
Folia Do debuted it in 4th place on iTunes and the VOD streamers.
That is unacceptable. That's preposterous.
I checked today. This thing just came out on VOD within the past week or so, right? I checked on iTunes today. It's at 11. It is behind. Here's what's in front of Joker Folia Do: Deadpool, Beetlejuice, The Substance, It Ends With Us, Wild Robot, The Apprentice, which made like 3 million box office.
Wait. Wow.
The Apprentice, Twisters, which has been available forever.
Great movie.
Twilight randomly. Get this, Joe. Get this. Blink Twice.
What?
Blink Twice.
That movie did great on VOD.
Is doing
It's
more
better than Joker still.
but currently doing more on VOD than Joker Folia Do.
God.
And Transformers 1 are all doing better on VOD right now than Joker Folia Do, which just came out on VOD.
Who wants to watch?
Nobody
fucking
wants to see
Folia
this
Do? Who wants to
movie?
call their partner and be like, "Hey, I want to watch fucking Joker Folia"?
Nobody even wants to
watch
see how
anything
bad
else.
it is.
Right now.
Wow.
Oh, wait, it's that long? Oh no, forget it.
It's wild.
I heard it's awful. I heard it's awful. It could be really fun to watch. No, I heard it's not even fun to watch. Oh, really? Oh, okay. Damn. Like, how bad does word of mouth have to be for that to be the case? That a Joker movie, A Joker movie.
Yes.
Joker.
Yes.
Joker, that ain't Venom. Like even Venom is like small potato. Like Joker's like
arguably more popular than Batman. Like the,
right.
like the franchise where the villain is as popular or more popular than
I would be so upset. We talked about it many times about why that movie flopped and why it flopped at a studio level, but the pain still should stay.
Think about all these kids, all these Redditors who do like fan art of like Heath Ledger's Joker and Jared Leto's Joker and Joaquin Phoenix all in the back of a car together or something. Like, this is an iconic character. Wow. Joe, let's catch up on some movie news this week because there's a lot to get to. A couple quick hitters here. Very good news. We're getting a sequel to Godzilla -1. This was my second favorite movie of 2023 after May, December. Director Takashi Yamazaki is coming back for the sequel. This is going to be starting production at Toho Studios as early as next year. This is very good news because there was rumors that Kevin Feige was trying to grab Yamazaki for like a Marvel thing.
Get out.
Get the fuck out of here, Feige. Apparently they had a meeting and Yamazaki almost immediately was like, yeah, I'm going to do the Godzilla -1 sequel.
Godzilla -2.
I love it.
Please call it Godzilla -2.
I mean, it's right there.
That'd be sick.
It's right there.
And maybe it's like it gets cold or something. Godzilla gets ice.
Right. Nuclear winter, fallout, something
Godzilla
like that.
-2.
I love it.
Think about that, everybody.
I cannot wait. So look for that. I guess 2026 maybe. If it's filming end of next year, we'll see. But it'll be here before you know it, and I cannot wait. Now, your guy, Kevin Costner, who's had a hell of a year trying to get people to go see Horizon, is in some kind of in debt up to his ears. Can't pay for this thing. They can't even get part 2 out in theatrical release. They can't even figure out how to get it out. So this guy's had a whole mess with his big dream project Horizon. Now, apparently, his latest scheme for saving this thing is he is shopping around a behind-the-scenes documentary. So he's going Lost in La Mancha, Hearts of Darkness. He's like, well, if they're not coming out for the movie, maybe I can make some behind-the-scenes documentary about all the turmoil and the craziness, and they'll come out for that.
That is genius.
I would see it in a second.
Here's why that's genius. Number one, great, make some fucking money on the way. Keep funding Horizon Part 2. Fine. Number two, sounds good.
Don't
Number
reinvest.
Number two,
whatever money you make,
every dime HBO documentary is going to pay you for this like made-for-TV movie of your BTS footage that only me and Brett are going to watch. Put that into Part 2.
No, look.
Number two.
This is good advice for Coppola because he's got the wine fortune. What costs nothing.
I'm worried about. There's more fortune than just that.
You gonna put this guy up in your guest house when he reinvests?
If I had one, Kevin Costner could live in my guest house any day of the week.
Right, you heard it, Kevin. You heard it. All right, then go for broke,
Kevin
baby.
Costner's
Worst comes to worst, you can stay in Joe's guest house.
I don't have a guest house, but you'd be more than welcome.
You have a
sir.
nice like front yard situation with some wicker furniture.
You can sleep on my wicker furniture on the porch.
All right, Kevin. I scratch what I said. Go for broke. Reinvest. Worst comes to worst, you can sleep in Joe's front yard.
Another good reason. Number two. Oh, what's more popular right now or savvy than for brands to do BTS documentaries? This came out of Netflix with F1, and then the golf guys did it, and then you love these, Brett. You watched the NFL did it with wide receivers.
They did quarterbacks and they did receivers.
Sports leagues have used documentary to get people invested in the characters of the league. So you might not follow F1, but there's this great show about these guys who live this crazy life. It's a reality TV show about them, and you learn about them and you love them and you start watching F1, and it's helped develop a very strong burgeoning F1 audience in the States. See, Costner's he's getting everybody invested in the characters. Soon we're going to be like household names. Oh, I love when his DP comes over and razzes him. Oh, I love when his composer comes over and tells him a great idea. I love how Costner works with the costume team. Oh man, I love costume team. And then we're going to get invested in them and say Part 2 comes out and we go, I got to see how costume team put it together. It's like his Hard Knocks, Brett.
But
now we want to watch the Bears and see if they can put it together.
I never got the feel from watching Horizon though that it was like a fraught production. It all seemed pretty leisurely. Like, what are we going to get some great like little one-liners from Luke Wilson in the makeup trailer? Like I don't get the like.
Okay, I see
Hearts
that.
of Darkness was this like
I see that
transformative, traumatic, generational like crisis movie.
But what's the best parts of Man of La Mancha is like when he flies all the investors down to show them the set, and it's like a mess. Like maybe it's more about the raising of the money for part 2 as much as it is the production
It would have
of part
to be.
1.
I would be on board
that'd be
with that.
exciting, right? Like him, him in a
Yeah.
reality TV show setting, talking to whatever the distributor at Warner Brothers or Paramount or whomever he's trying to like assuage or ran Saudi money or the freaking K Street or whoever Costner's.
This is the idea. I don't want like a DVD behind the scenes thing where Sienna Miller is like
Costner's amazing to work with.
Right.
No. I'm imagining like a high stakes thing where he's trying to get part 2 made.
That's great. And it's the money. And then the documentary can be about the difficulty of financing movies in the 21st century. And you can get interviews with Terry Gilliam, Todd Solondz. We know they've had a lot of problems finding money for their next movies.
Yeah.
Make it all about film financing.
Oh, make it about film financing today.
Yes.
You get John Waters in
That's
there.
Interesting. That's
and he's
interesting.
like, he's like, all right, maybe my thing's a little funny, but this isn't just like a niche issue. Like a lot of artists and creators are experiencing this right now. Spread it out.
Get Todd Haynes in there. He can tell. You can get the exclusive on what really went down with Joaquin.
This is a good idea.
This is a very good idea.
We should pitch this to Kevin.
Kevin.
I'd love it. Imagine
This is the path to Horizon 2. Okay.
Make people fall in love with you again and again. I know you've done it many times. Again, via you show them, let's see your passion for the project and sell us all on it, Kevin, via the power of the doc.
Because the problem with Horizon is almost that it didn't have enough like fraud.
It's not long enough.
No, the problem with Horizon is there wasn't enough like stories coming out of set. Like,
there weren't enough,
this thing is out of control. It didn't seem out of control.
No
at all.
megalopolis.
Yeah, it seemed very controlled. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that he wants to make a 12-hour Western, and he doesn't have enough money.
Right.
It's got to be about that. I
want to see him on a boat at Cannes giving the speech saying, "Here's my hat. Can you please put some coins in it?"
Now, the biggest news of the week, though, is not that. It's not Kevin Costner's behind-the-scenes documentary about Horizon. The biggest news of the week is obviously America's presidential election, baby. Donald Trump won a second term with 295 electoral votes and over 50% of the popular vote. And the question on everybody's mind right now is, as you know, Joe, how is this going to affect Hollywood is the thing everyone's talking about, the thing everyone is most concerned about. But we're going to run through it because, first of all, it depends on what you mean by Hollywood. Do you mean Adam McKay and Viola Davis, or do you mean the C-suite executives who run the studios? Because for all of Hollywood's posturing and also scapegoating as an axis of American liberalism, you can bet your ass that the studio heads were relieved, if not ecstatic, about the results of the election. And why is that, Joe? Well, we're going to go through it. And of course, it comes down to money. It's the same reason that the stock market jumped on Wednesday and the world's 10 richest people got a record 64 billion richer in a single day, because Trump 2.0 projects to be very light on regulations and very kind to M&A, mergers and acquisitions, which has not been the case for the last 4 years. I mean, however you end up scoring the Biden administration on everything, the FTC was the most antitrust and pro-consumer we've seen, I think, in like 50 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody, Republican and Democrat, had become very friendly to the concept of mergers and acquisitions. The last 4 years, though, was as antitrust as we've seen the federal government, and it was led by the so-called Big Four regulatory appointments of Lena Khan in the FTC, Jonathan Cantor at the DOJ Antitrust Division, Rohit Chopra at the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau, and Gary Gensler at the SEC. Together, the Big Four signaled a specific antipathy to consolidation across a number of industries, blah, blah, blah. Basically, they were not as friendly to mergers and acquisitions as previous federal governments, and they were had a much more pro-consumer focus. And the first, I will say, Trump 1.0, the first Trump administration, also had its antitrust moments. Yeah. They opposed the AT&T and Time Warner merger, which ended up going through because the courts overruled them, and they investigated Google's search monopoly. But as with all things Trump, this was just about punishing enemies and not about some sort of ideological position on mergers and acquisitions. And that's why I think you saw one of the most, out of all the depressing things that came out of the election news this week, I think one thing that was just like, was really depressing was you seeing Bezos, Zuckerberg, Larry Ellison, of course, Elon Musk, all of our, tech billionaires tripping over themselves to offer the most hearty congratulations possible, the most sort of elegant, florid, oh, he did it. What a triumphant story that he overcame all of this hardship, aka his own fucking monstrousness, to become president again. And what are we talking about specifically in terms of Hollywood? Well, we know Bank of America has already advised Warner Brothers to explore a sale. We know Lionsgate is in trouble. We've been talking about that forever. We don't really know what the Ellisons are going to do with Paramount. Is this just sort of like are they just going to flip it in 4 years for a profit, or is this something that they want to control long term? But regardless of that, we are in store for lots and lots of mergers and acquisitions, and they will probably go through without a hitch with Trump in the White House. And just this September at the annual, maybe at the annual Bank of America Media, Communications and Entertainment Conference, Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinkera said, Hollywood is in for chaos, quote, over the next 2 years. He predicted the industry is in for a wave of mergers and bankruptcies and sales and all kinds of fun things. And that this is the key, only the biggest companies will survive. The goal, as it has been over the last, half century, is going to be too big to fail, too big to fail, too big to fail. Get as big as you possibly can, and then you can ensure your own, at the very least, your own longevity. It's not about the product. It's not about consumer experience. It's certainly not about art or creativity. It is about getting as big as possible and preparing for the next sale, the next merger and acquisition. Joe, that's a little sort of laying out of the playing field. What are your thoughts on what Hollywood really thinks about the election of Trump and what it portends for the next 4 years in Hollywood and the entertainment industry?
Well, you set it up. There's going to be more M&A, and Hollywood is desperate for it because Hollywood and its studio heads have long believed that consolidation is necessary, though not for art, like you said, but for a different thing that you said, which the argument that they might make is it's about consumer experience, and we, the consumer, might be sympathetic to some of these ideas. I'm going to read from Zaz. So David Zaslav, the head of Warner Brothers, he is an M&A guy. He ran Discovery for 15 years, and then it was his idea to merge with Warner Brothers, which he successfully did, and then he became the CEO. And he wants to continue to merge and consolidate because, yes, you need to scale, but also because the way the media ecosystem is currently arranged is fucking stupid. So think about it. He calls it generational disruption. Okay. So, oh my gosh, I don't have the quote.
But while you're looking for that, I have a quote from Ari Emanuel, which I think also sort of points to this. Ari Emanuel, the CEO of Endeavor Group Holdings and TKO Group, a major power player in Hollywood for a long time now, he predicted that after the next 4 or 5 years, we will end up with about 5 or 6 major streamers / content providers left when all of this media industry consolidation dust settles. He said, I think you're in a situation where you have Paramount, Warner, Disney, Comcast, there's other players. I think there will probably be 5 or 6 remaining streamer or content providers, Netflix, Amazon. We're all going to see what happens with Apple, YouTube. He said this during the IMG Redbird Summit. Then we probably have 2 remaining over the next 5 years from that group. And for some people that supply them, whether they be actors, writers, directors, non-scripted, or sports, that's a very good, healthy ecosystem with people that will have very big and deep pockets. That will take approximately 2 to 3 years to play out.
Yeah. Think about when you go on Apple TV right now or your Roku box, and then you want to go watch something. Like our listeners might have like just enough savvy to be like, I feel like this type of content might be on Max because it's a Warner Brothers picture. Can you imagine how small a percentage of person that is? So when my mom turns on the TV and she wants to watch anything, what the fuck is she supposed to do? Yeah. Because all the time, FX is, well, that's a bad example. But FX is on Hulu, but like sometimes the licensing deals flip around, and then what The Office is on Netflix one day, Peacock the next day, broken up, split apart.
Well, we saw with Universal's animated properties like Minions that comes from Illumination that's under Universal. They will window it on Peacock, then they'll move it to Netflix for exposure, then they'll move it back to Peacock. So there's all this sort of jockeying around and positioning that goes on.
So as entertainment companies stupidly turned themselves into tech companies, which was folly, but now it's too late. Cat's out of the bag. So now we have to readjust all content products. And they think that corporate consolidation can streamline the consumer experience. Another way, that's that's true. And then what's also true is they're going to make a lot of money. So that's not a surprise. And by the way, I'm not having any sort of like good or bad about that. In fact, it's not about Trump really. Mergers and acquisitions happen under Lena Khan. We just saw Skydance bought Paramount.
Great point.
And they don't happen under Trump. Like Trump, his anti-tech bent, they didn't want AT&T to merge with Warner Brothers, and that ended up passing. So what I'm saying is M&A comes and go, little wishful thinking from Hollywood bigwigs that now there's going to be some sort of saving of their miserably set up companies. And like Trump's not the answer to Hollywood salvation. The answer to Hollywood salvation is born out of like creativity and connection and to engaged audiences.
Yeah, and Trump is so unpredictable. I mean, who knows if the next 4 years will be friendly to mergers and acquisitions or not. I think that's why you saw this rush, because there has in the past been this sort of antagonism between tech and Trump. Even if behind the scenes that antagonism was sort of an illusion, at least it played out in the public as an antagonism. That's why I think you see all these guys rushing and tripping over themselves to sort of, kiss the ring right now, is I think they think they can play the Trump game, that they can just flatter him. And then when it comes time for their merger and acquisition to happen, Trump will be like, oh yeah, I like that guy. Let it go through. Right. Yeah. But who knows? I don't know. But the thing that we know for sure is that, it's always been true. I mean, this is the city that produced, Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon and Ben Shapiro and Andrew Breitbart. Hollywood as a liberal city has always been a bit of an illusion. It's certainly an overstatement. And you can bet that all these studio heads would much rather see Trump in office than Kamala in office, in terms of what they think it portends for the future of their companies.
I do find it so interesting, apolitically, just in a general sense, that Hollywood and entertainment, from a revenue standpoint, so small compared to other companies in ag and healthcare, tech, all these humongous sectors and places that we talk about, Brett, like Warner Brothers and Lionsgate, Universal, fucking peanut city, right? But so why do these bodies have so many regulatory bodies? And like, why does, when it's a big deal, when Paramount, who fucking cares, tries to merge with Warner Brothers, who fucking gives a shit, because that is how powerful and valuable media is, because it is the prime connector to the population. It's just amazing that there's so much regulation in such a small industry, because it is so valuable to own the media, which we just saw in this election. Owning legacy media this time around, less valuable than owning some new media outlets, aka the old ways of connecting with people aren't going to be as advantageous, whether for your vote or for your dollar, as these ways of the new media's connectivity via the phones, the internets, the algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. That's the problem that these guys are freaking flipping out about. And they think if they can just all smush together, rearrange their parts, fire 75% of their labor force, that they can get their cap sheet looking good enough for the next fucking sale. So you're right there, Brett. But should be an bear with me on my words, an exciting time of mergers and acquisitions in Hollywood, aka gossip.
It'll be a very eventful 4 years.
Gossip,
very eventful
Hollywood gossip for the podcast. We'll see.
Now,
we'll see.
In other political news and how it influences the entertainment industry, Gavin Newsom came out, the governor of California came out last week and announced that he is proposing some massive increases to film and TV tax credits when studios and production companies make their projects in California. As we know, for a while now, projects have been California has been losing projects. Most stuff is being made, or a lot of stuff is being made in Atlanta, in Georgia, in New York, where the tax incentives are better. These tax incentives are such a big part of where studios and production companies decide to shoot. I mean, we saw even back when we were talking about that madman Uwe Boll, his entire sort of career is based around where he can get the best tax rebates, because it's the only way he can pay for his movies. So this is really, really a huge part of deciding where to make movies and make TV shows. And California has been bleeding those projects for a while now, and it's affected the labor force here, particularly in Los Angeles. So Gavin Newsom is trying to reverse this trend, and he announced that he's going to be boosting the state's tax credits from their present level of $330 million to around $750 million annually. That's a huge, huge boost. That's over double what it is currently, and that would put it ahead of New York's current $700 million annual tax credit program, still under Georgia, which just it's, you know, this is my home state. It's the best thing they got going for them right now. Is just, why would they stop? They just keep, if you're going to put it, if Gavin Newsom's, I think they're currently at around $1 billion a year, but even if Gavin Newsom was to do $1 billion, I'm sure they would just go to, you know, they would just go higher than that.
So many people and infrastructure and everything's in Atlanta.
It's brought so much to the city. It's brought so much work to the city. But this sounds like, you know, obviously California always has the additional advantage of being where people in the entertainment industry mostly live. So just becoming more competitive is going to be, I think, a huge, huge benefit to the local entertainment industry in California, and hopefully get a lot of people around here back to work. What do you think, Joe?
No doubt about that. It's actually really exciting. There's like the macro issue of sort of like Band-Aids. Basically, this whole entire city is being like held on by a fucking thread because the business model has shifted drastically and the labor force is radically sort of like trying to update themselves, and if you don't update, you die. Like, that's what we do as a company all day long, is just try to like catch up with whatever we need to do to, you know, stay alive technically and financially. What are we talking about?
Gavin Newsom's tax credit program.
My head popped back to work for that one sentence, and I was like, fuck.
I saw it. I saw it.
No, but of course we want the work back in California. It's good for me. It's good for my wife. It's good for our city. It's good for all of our friends that live here. This is more of me as a person that likes living here and loves this town and loves the people that work here and are from here. Like, of course I want this to continue to be, and our business is here. Of course I want California to still be the epicenter of Hollywood, still to mean what it always meant. It's just going to change. I'm excited.
I'm glad though that it's like that it's now, it's just making California competitive again with these other states' programs. Like, I like that he didn't.
I don't want to make a fucking movie in London. Like, if we made a movie, like, I mean, London's a great town. I don't want to make I want to make a movie in fucking Hollywood.
Yeah.
That sounds sexy and fun. I know you make movies everywhere, and they do, but like, and they'll still go to Ireland, and they'll still go to Hungary, and they'll still go to Georgia, and still go to Nevada or wherever they go. But California should have the biggest credit.
It's freaking Hollywood. It needs to be where a lot of movies are made and a lot of TV shows are made.
Come on.
All right, let's do it. One last news item. So Josh Safdie is working on this new movie. It's his first movie since splitting creatively from Benny Safdie. His first movie on his own is Marty Supreme, which stars Timothy Chalamet in a role that I thought it was a straight up biopic of this table tennis champion Marty Reisman, who was kind of a world champion in the late 50s and 60s. I'm reading now though that it's more of this sort of like inspired by, but then Safdie's going to do his own thing. Because right now the log line from A24 is set in the 1950s. Marty Supreme will tell the wild story of a ping pong champion. It is said to be a fictional work, but Reisman's life is being used as a template. We also know the casting is amazing. In addition to Chalamet, you've got Gwyneth Paltrow making a return to movies. You got Tyler the Creator, Penn Jillette, Kevin O'Leary, aka Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, Abel Ferrara, Fran Drescher. This cast is unbelievable.
Wow.
I could not be more excited for this movie. But an interesting headline came out this week that A24's budget, the budget they gave Josh Safdie for this movie, Joe, $90 million. This movie has a $90 million budget? I don't know, Joe. I don't know. That's a little bit of a red flag. I mean, we've talked about so much. We were talking about earlier in this episode about how much the right budget can influence whether or not a movie is set up for success or set up for failure. And I just don't know about a $90 million budget, because that means it's got to make, but the box office is going to have to be close to 200 million to be sort of break even into profit. I just don't know. If you look at Uncut Gems, right, the previous movie, I mean, has there ever been an A24 indie movie with more sort of hype and interest around? I mean, like Uncut Gems, of course there are, but Uncut Gems was a very hyped cultural moment of a movie. It had a big movie star in it, Adam Sandler. It only cost $20 million and it made $50 million at the box office. So you're telling me Marty Supreme is going to have to make what, 4 times as much money as Uncut Gems to to make profit. I just don't know if it can get there. I just don't know if it's like possible for a movie like this to get there right now in the, you know, current landscape of American theatrical releases. What do you think?
Well, I think we've been talking all year about A24's aspirations to level up. They're a giant, if not the biggest independent film studio, and they are known for their sort of art house, let's call it art house aesthetics in their cool ass movies. Let's just call that their brand, right? So they're trying to level up. They made Civil War $50 million. That did great this year. And we know
that's their previous, by the way, their previous biggest budget is Civil War at 50. And now they're almost doubling it for Marty Supreme.
Maybe part of this is all conjecture. Maybe they sat around and they're like, we need to show that we are Lionsgate, Sony level players that can handle a $90 million budget, movie stars, worldwide major distribution of a major tentpole motion picture with a movie star, Timothée Chalamet, who, though, you know, people aren't coming out for Timmy and Dune, Timmy's racking up quite the wins. Wonka made a shit ton of money. Dune made a shit ton of money. He's a popular, obviously, movie star. It's risky, but I think maybe A24 is like, I want to be a big dog. I want to make a $90 million movie with a wide release, but I want it to still be A24. Who are we going to pick to like embody like the ethos of A24? Oh, should we call up Eggers? Well, he's, you know, what's Eggers cooking up? He's doing Nosferatu. Like, hey, you know what? Let's do Safdie. If we get Safdie doing a Chalamet and we get Paltrow back to return to filmmaking, maybe we can put our distinctive stamp on a different sized film. It's all very ambitious, and you're making a skeptical face, and that could be totally fair. I don't know. Maybe you put it out on Christmas, and like maybe the trailer looks big and it's like funny as fuck. I don't know. It sounds crazy though. A $90 million Safdie Brothers movie, but maybe that's what they're saying.
I respect the ambition. I respect the overall trajectory. Like you said, A24 is trying to level up. They're trying to move into sort of mini major territory. I think like where Lionsgate is.
Yeah, maybe they're
trying
like,
to move out of
add the SVOD, add the streaming, carry the two, Timmy's on points.
I would have liked to seen a little bit more incremental change. This feels like too big of a jump too soon. I mean, you're going from previously your highest budget is $50 million with Civil War. You're basically doubling that for Marty Supreme, which is like, you and I are going to love the shit out of it.
Yeah.
This is a very singular kind of movie. This is going to be a very Josh Safdie movie.
There must be something about it we don't know that gives them the confidence to make this kind of investment. You know what else it could be? You know, another thing is like, okay, it's 90. Okay, it doesn't make 300 mil, but it makes, 145 and we can all go to bed. Because just like Warner Brothers,
it's like Forever Dog math.
What? Dude,
we got some great brand awareness out of it. Let's call it a day.
Dude, welcome. Honestly. But Brett, think about this. Like Netflix is fighting to keep talented people working with them because of their anti-theatrical distribution thing. So now they're trying to suck up to Gerwig. Warner Brothers. We talk about how Warner Brothers is like, how are we going to keep Todd Phillips in our roster? A24 is like, we can't lose the fucking Safdies. Then we're not even fucking going to be A24 anymore. Like, we got to like, these are our guys. Like if we're doing art house, big studio, let's get Safdie and Eggers and Astor and, name your A24 all-stars and like, let's fucking go. The Safdie brothers are good at making movies. Also, like they have higher financial. I can see a world where a Safdie brothers movie has mass appeal. I mean, Uncut Gems culturally had a mass appeal in our stupid bubble, but maybe they're making something just broader and it's like happier, or because the Safdie brothers split, it's less like intense and more friendly or funnier, or there's got to be some angle that they had confidence in. Or they don't want to lose talent. And they said, no matter what, if it makes $40 million at the box office, it makes $20 million overseas, we can make, 10 on the licensing, and we just like lose $10 million on this one thing, but we keep Safdie happy. Like, is that possible? And we get to work with Chalamet and maybe, or like something like that. Like
you were saying, in this world in which talent is getting, like we talked about last week, from Daniel Craig to Emerald Fennell to Greta Gerwig, talent is getting annoyed by the streamers, and the money is not enough anymore. They want to be fucking movie stars. They want the big theatrical release. They want the cultural movies that are cultural phenomenon. They don't want to just take the big check from Netflix and then make a movie that no one talks about or sees, right? So maybe A24 is positioning itself as like, hey, we can do this for you. Because remember, Emerald Fennell turned down $150 million from Netflix and took $80 million from Warner Brothers. But now I'm like, look, this is
A24 is
I
like fuck
do
Warner
not
Brothers.
I do not believe this artistically or creatively, but strictly speaking financially, I'm kind of like, why, if you had $90 million to spend, you should have bought this fucking Emerald Fennel movie. It's like, it's not gonna be as good as Marty Supreme, but it'll make its money. It's got fucking Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie doing Wuthering Heights. It'll make its money.
A24.
I don't like that argument, but I'm speaking strictly on the money side of things.
Maybe in a world of like undiscoverability when it comes to content, the A24 sort of like sheen or brand or color is valuable. And they said, hey, this made us like get to make $5 million movies. Our distinctive qualities and what we believe in is what's going to make us be able to make bigger movies. And that quality play and that hipness play is going to bring butts to the movie theaters.
Well, look, I am rooting for them.
I'm being very optimistic.
Yes,
but they gave not A24. Someone else gave Paul Thomas Anderson $1 trillion.
So here we go. Here we go. So because there is a trend here though that I'm a little worried about, and it sucks because I could not be more excited for. I mean, are there any movies you're more excited about than Marty Supreme and Battle for Bactan Cross or Battle of Bactan Cross? No. But we've also seen that the path to ruin begins with bad budgets. Always begin with bad budgets. Think about what happened with Fall Guy.
Honestly, like
that should have been
paint it on the walls.
Fall Guy should have been a financial hit. It was so like there was no reason to spend $160 million on that thing.
Beetlejuice cost $145 million. They made a call before they went into shooting. Tim, it only costs $100 million, and that discrepancy, that $45 million difference in budget, made Beetlejuice their most profitable movie of the year by a mile.
Exactly. So speaking of Battle of Bactan Cross, which is the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, the budget right now, easily PTA's biggest budget. The budget is estimated to be between 115 and 140 million. And this is Warner Brothers, right? Battle
I'm
of
not
Bactan
sure.
Cross? Okay.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
while
please
you're talking.
do.
Yeah.
And look, big stars, DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and also like you got Gen Z stars, Alana Haynes.
Why does he like Sean Penn so much?
He was great in
Sean Penn's an
Licorice Pizza.
Oh, because Sean Penn's an amazing
good in
actor,
Licorice
and
Pizza.
Morality is a fucking fiction.
Benicio's in this. So massive budget. This movie literally is going to have to make like $300 million to see profit. So my question, Joe, is: are we entering into a dangerous territory where we're about to see some very high-priced auteur flops, which is, the moment where studios like reclaim control? You think about sort of late 70s with Heaven's Gate, et cetera, et cetera. Hollywood goes through these periods where they give a lot of independence and creativity over to the artists, and it's good for 3 or 4 years. And then you get a couple auteur flops in a row, and suddenly the studios have the position to say, all right, enough with the smart kids. We're taking back control for a little bit. Are we entering into a scary territory where we could see this this PTA movie flop and this Marty Supreme flop, and then suddenly the studios have an argument for like, okay, enough with that?
No, you're mainlining anxiety this week.
This is the history of Hollywood, though. We've seen this happen over and over and over again.
Your concern is that we'll never get to see a big budget good movie ever again, because these guys are going to flop.
Everything goes in cycles.
Sure.
But I think we're entering a bad part. We could be entering a bad part of the cycle.
What if we're entering a good part? Apparently, the Battle of Bactan Cross has like sci-fi elements.
Okay,
and it has like aliens in it or something, or it has Leonardo DiCaprio in it. Like maybe it just. I know, but then you put it out.
You are delighting the
I know.
artistic side of me. You are worrying the financial side even more.
Yeah, and I have no faith in Warner Brothers, and
it is Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. You know that scene Saturday night when Dick Ebersol and Lorne Michaels are in the stairwell, and
I know every scene.
Right, you know every scene Saturday Night by heart,
and
he's like, Lorne, you like, because Lorne is trying to figure this out logically of, why am I not getting this support for this? And then Dick Ebersol's like, Lorne, they want you to fail. They're like doing contract negotiations with Johnny Carson, and they want to like they want you to know, like they want Johnny Carson to know that they have other options, but they don't want this to be a success. They just want to stick with what works. So like you're just set up to fail here. Are these movies being? This is too conspiratorial.
Go ahead. I like it. Go ahead, conspiracy Brett. No, A24 wants Marty to succeed.
Are they like Yeah, sure, PTA, you can have $140 million.
They don't have enough money at Warner
And then
Brothers to play mind
when
games
this
with
thing
PTA.
bombs, then you never get to sniff anything north of a $50 million budget ever again.
I don't know. Maybe it's the last dying gasps of a dream.
Wow, you hear that, people? That's like a line from here.
Maybe. Yeah, right.
Now, speaking of, we're going to get into our reviews of this week's new releases, Here and A Real Pain. And while we do try to avoid any major plot spoilers in our reviews, it's impossible to give an honest review of these stinking movies without talking about them in their entirety. And so if we're reviewing a movie that you don't want spoiled in the least, not even a little bit,
Here.
I don't think it's going to apply this week. We recommend that you play it safe and put us on mute and rejoin us when we move on to the next movie. If you're watching, you can just look at the lower third. It'll tell you what we're talking about. Margo, I think we're actually going to do Here first. We'll do Here first. And if you are catching up later, I also put the time codes in the episode description so you know when we do what. Let's start with Here. Here is directed by Robert Zemeckis, who co-wrote the script with Eric Roth. Heard of him? 6-time Academy Award nominated screenwriter of Forrest Gump, The Insider, Munich, Benjamin Button, A Star is Born, Dune, among several other movies.
Good at writing movies.
He's very good at writing movies. It is based on the graphic novel Here by Richard McGuire. The DP is frequent Zemeckis collaborator Don Burgess, and the movie stars Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, completing the Forrest Gump reunion, plus Paul Bettany, Kelly Riley, and others. This innovative movie uses a stationary camera to depict the lives, loves, and losses of the humans and dinosaurs.
Thank you.
Who occupy the same plot of land in New Jersey over the course of the last million or so years. So you've got the dinosaurs, you've got an indigenous family, you've got a colonial family who's related to Benjamin Franklin. And you see Benjamin Franklin at one point.
Yes, you do. He's going over for a visit. Ben Franklin lived across.
My boy!
It's the street in New Jersey. Yeah, Ben Franklin lived across the street or something.
My boy.
Yeah. Okay, Ben Franklin. Go through all the people that
a turn
live
of the
there.
century family who's into aviation and dies of the Spanish flu or
Yes,
something.
that's
You've got
exactly
the
right.
Bohemian Roaring Twenties couple who invent the Lazy Boy recliner.
Yes. No spoiler. I thought we were doing no spoilers.
I'm spoiling
You
everything.
piece of shit.
I already gave the disclaimer. I can do whatever I want. You get none of this is. You never go, oh my God.
That's supposed to be the whole
There's
thing.
never
though.
the sensation of like a twist is happening in this movie, so don't worry about it. And then, of course, you get your main characters, the Young family, who buy the house after World War II thanks to the GI Bill. And then occupy, thanks to the GI Bill and their own whiteness, and then they occupy it for the next 70 or so years as Paul Bettany hands it over to his son Tom Hanks, and they raise their respective families in this house. And then finally, you have a contemporary family who occupies the house during COVID years.
After Hanks sells
Hanks sells it. The movie is non-linear. It jumps back and forth between these various timelines, and the camera stays in place the entire freaking time, minus the last 30 seconds or so.
Fucking spoiler alert for Here.
Oh, I'm sorry. They finally moved the fucking
That's
camera.
like the whole fucking thing.
Joe, what'd you think of Here?
Here was the best movie of what I think of Here.
What'd you think of Here?
Yeah. Here is, I love watching our wonderful auteurs age and watching all the different ways. Hold on.
Zemeckis.
All of our
He shook.
yeah, how dare you? I know. Zemeckis is one of Hollywood's biggest filmmakers.
Okay, great. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The guy's made so many classic Hollywood pictures. Okay. He's had a rough road, and now he's
freaking James Cameron. He's he's a massive
he makes
cultural
massive,
force of a
popular,
filmmaker.
films that have reverberated through generations of Americans. In Here, it's fun to watch all of our old filmmakers grow old and be most of them, the good ones, the ones that were really in it to win it the whole entire time, have developed their craft and become more and more of themselves and refine more and more of what they do. Like from, Coppola and Megalopolis, that's so Coppola, right? My God. Or, late Weissman. You're like, oh, that's so fucking Weissman. Late Scorsese, how his attitudes towards violence have shifted and what he depicts in Killers of the Flower Moon. It's amazing to watch all these old filmmakers grow up and they become more and more themselves. Well, Here is the most Zemeckis I've ever seen in my life. It was like a Zemeckis fucking hurricane. It's the most...
Only Zemeckis could have made this movie. I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a formally ambitious and technically grandiose experiment that's actually kind of fucking thrilling and exciting and brilliant. All Zemeckis' films are this weird pairing of like technological cinematech advancements paired with stories that succeed to varying degrees. And once again, we see him here at like the end of his days incorporating like, so much motion capture and a little sprinklings of AI and like all of this sort of stuff in this really formalistically rigid and interesting and like could have been beautiful movie. The problem with a majority of his films. The content is for idiots. The content is for children. And then when he makes children movies, they're like, that was good. And he makes adult movies, you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? It's like it's borderline creepy how sweet this fucker is. And here is him at his like most saccharine. But also here has this hateful little twist in it, which is only when Robin Wright at the end of her life is riddled with dementia is she able to even begin to utter the words, I like being in this house. I love it here. Because all the movie is, and maybe Zemeckis would agree, it's like a very beautiful Norman Rockwell look at a collection of like tremendous disappointments and how like your life just becomes kind of this like horrible collection of disappointments that all kind of take place very specifically on private property. Weird movie. I had a lot of fun. I went with Brett and our friend Gabriel. We all like laughed and like nudged each other because Zemeckis is so silly. This movie cuts to Native Americans, but all the Native Americans do is like have tender moments in the moonlight. It's like so
all they do is
offensive.
all they do is like cultural rituals that Zemeckis found out about from a documentary.
So silly. Oh, and then later on, like at one point with like a guy knocks on the door or something. And he's like, hi, can I come in your house? Like, can I go in the backyard and dig up ancient Native American necklaces I know are back there? And like, wow, that's
and it amounts to nothing.
Crazy.
It amounts to nothing.
There's that. That's stupid. There's a lot of moments from Boomer history, like greatest hits, filtering in and out throughout the film. Like, there's the Beatles.
I cannot believe we did not get Kennedy assassination.
Or moon landing.
I leaned over, or moon landing.
He picks and chooses like some odd spots.
I leaned over to you and I was like, I can't wait. I'm going to stand up and cheer when we get the Kennedy assassination. And it never happened. Yeah.
And I think that most unfortunately, tonally, like if this movie's goal was to move you, which it certainly was, which is the goal of all of his manipulative, childish movies, is stunted by some silliness, like with the like ancient Native American people's tenderness moments, stupid, bookended by the modern Black family that's struggling through COVID, who gives this family gets very limited screen time. Something that happens during the only thing that really happens to this family.
They get one scene. Let's be clear.
One scene.
Like if you take out the scene where they're like, this is our new house, and the scene where they're like, well, time to sell this house. If you take out those two scenes, they get one
Everybody
scene.
else gets a lot of scenes.
They get one scene.
Unfortunately, and tonally devastating to the larger project of here, this poor Black family, the only insight into their lives we get is the father giving the son the famous talk about law enforcement.
What to do if you get pulled over
so
by the cops.
It's very
and
like
it's so Zemeckis.
It's very like
it's so
white liberal,
boomer
like,
liberal.
See,
bullshit.
I listened,
Yes.
and now it's reflected in my film here. Also, their maid dies of COVID, and it's very funny because like 1 second she can't smell, and then the next second it like cuts to someone walking in and being like, Rosa died.
It's the
so
kind
silly.
of scene, in addition to the scene of the indigenous family that we sort of cut to occasionally. It's as though like Zemeckis filmed the scene, and then they gave him like a giant like crayon, and he like checked a giant box and then moved on. It is the most like white boomer liberal box checking you've ever seen in your entire life. It's like it's him going like, I did it right, like I did it right, like I've like it's not all white people, right? Good, right?
It was tough. It was tough.
It's wild.
It was really tough. And then, but overall, besides like many unfortunate moments and some bizarre choices, I did find it formally exciting, and I like that this guy who, whether or not I like his films, like I understand that he's very good at making movies and he loves them very much. I did like just being like, oh, this guy, he's not some fucking hack. Like Zemeckis never gave up on changing, iterating, evolving, and trying things. And here he is in his 70s, trying something that is never going to work, and having the fucking chutzpah to get the financing for it. Like in this later like age, like I respect here. I think here's a bad movie. I did like tear up like 2 or 3 times. These days, if you show a father and mom or like parents enjoying their children, like you bet I'm going to cry.
I'm done.
And the kid's like laughing and running around a living room. Oh, I'm going to cry. But you know, that's not here doesn't get like points because I'm a sap.
That's because we're hovering on the edge of like emotional instability at all times.
We just love our children and they make us happy. But you know, the movie is I appreciate its ambitions, and it's cool that our great filmmakers are never, even in like their 70s, 80s, and 90s, like they're not on a beach. They're like still thinking about the fucking craft, trying to push themselves. At 75, Zemeckis, God bless.
Yeah. No, this is more like Megalopolis than it is whatever like phoned in bullshit, you know, you might see from a less committed, you know, director.
Exactly.
The effort is very apparent. I'll put it there. There's definitely effort that was put behind this movie. I do think ultimately, like you said, I think you gave a great summary of it. It has the Forrest Gump disease where it's trying to be about everything and ultimately has very little to say about anything that's relevant to anybody. At the same time that it's trying to capture the entire scope of human history in one movie. We do see the passage of time, the movement of history, but you're given very little to think about. And I would say even worse for this movie, you're given very little to feel about, even despite these little movies that caught us off guard and with our personal vulnerabilities. I didn't care about anybody in this movie. I mean, the families and the couples who occupy this house are boring and their lives are uneventful. And there are times, I think, where Zemeckis leans into the monotony and the dull tragedies of their existence and is trying to do a kind of death of a salesman kitchen sink thing. The problem is the scenes are so fast. You can't do Death of a Salesman if you're constantly fucking doing this. The scenes are like micro scenes. And I'm like, why? You're not moving the camera. Let these people fucking act for 5 minutes before you cut to something else. But he's not able to like turn the movie on itself and make a point of the monotony because he never lets the monotony sit there long enough to become the point. He's constantly cutting to something else. And it also is very, I mean, it's the Death of a Salesman thing too is reflected in the structure and look of the movie, which, I mean, I've never seen a movie that felt more like a community theater play than here. I mean, because of the way the camera is done, characters literally have to like come up stage to get their close-ups. So you have this sense of like, oh, he's coming up stage. It's like everything feels very theatrical and very much like you're at a play. But because again, Zemeckis is so frantic to get from one micro vignette to the next, the characters are never given time to develop in relationship to each other, and the performances constantly have to like start over, and they never get going in any meaningful way. And the performances of Hanks and Robin Wright are obviously hampered by this fucking de-aging technology, which made Hanks look like he's, you know, goes to the Ben Platt High School from Dear Evan Hansen, the way they had him looking in this movie. And I was really, the one thing that really disappointed me though is like, because we went back and watched a lot of Zemeckis movies this week to do our top 5. Normally Zemeckis can be counted on at the very least for one like breathtaking how did he do it fucking set piece.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the plane crashes in Castaway and Flight, the last 30 minutes of What Lies Beneath, that famous mirror shot in Contact of Jenna Malone coming up the stairs. For all his sort of misses and highs and lows, you can always like count on Zemeckis for just like one fucking mind-blowing
The man
sequence.
knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And in here, that moment never came. I thought the device of the stationary camera really just constantly made me aware of its limitations. It was the kind of thing where it's like, and look, I love when like a limitation becomes a strength. I love it. I think that's the nature of filmmaking. That's the challenge of filmmaking, is turning limitations into strengths. But to me, I was just constantly reminded of the limitations of this decision and not like the hidden potentials of it. And everything from the blocking to the production design to the performances felt artificial. It felt unnecessarily limited by the stationary camera. And even worse than the camera to me was the editing. Zemeckis uses this like collage technique to switch between the timelines, where constantly these like little squares and rectangles would sort of block out the transitions, where like, you know, you're in the 1950s era, but then like a little square appears and you see back into the dinosaur period, and another little square over here and you see the roaring 20s, and then all the squares disappear and then you go into the present day. But like the square and rectangle things felt like a cheap iMovie transition effect. It did not feel on par with like Zemeckis level filmmaking or Zemeckis level technique. It just looked ugly and meaningless and automated, and it didn't allow for any interesting interplay between the timelines, which should have been a major component of this movie. Instead, these transitions just felt sort of arbitrary and uninspired. It's like, are you just like spinning a wheel as to where we go next? Like, there's no interplay between anything.
I agree with you. I thought it was effective and cool in the fixed perspective and the moving of the squares in and out and showing different slices of time. So you're sitting in one age, but then the TV is cut out of a different TV of a different age showing a different thing.
Yeah.
And I actually thought that was kind of subtly brilliant, and I'm sure incredibly difficult to actually pull off to do it. But Brett, I agree with you 100% that like, why didn't that make them something emotionally awesome through time or something? It didn't. It was cool, and it didn't pay off.
It did not pay off.
Yeah.
It did not pay off. My biggest issue with the movie, though, and you've talked about this, but let me get my rocks off too on this, is the biggest issue with the movie is this rich white boomer liberalism that just wafts off of every frame like a fucking stench. This movie has Beverly Hills Fundraiser written all over it. This movie has been in Gavin Newsom's wine cellar on multiple occasions. This movie gets investment advice, French Laundry. This movie gets investment advice from Nancy Pelosi on a private text thread. This fucking movie, Joe, chose one of the most fraught concepts in American society, housing, as its centerpiece, right? Mm-hmm. And pretends that housing is as benign and apolitical a concept as a fucking sandwich. It's ridiculous. When the scene where like Paul Bettany just waltzes in and buys the most gorgeous house you've ever seen with the GI Bill, and there's no acknowledgement of like redlining, and not everyone that fought in World War II could buy houses like this, et cetera, is just sort of like silly and devaluing to the project of the movie. This movie seems to have no interest in its own topic, which is a shame, because you could tell a fascinating story of American history by just focusing on one house and the various sort of historical contexts and ownership and etc. You could tell a fascinating story of American history using this device, but first you have to be aware of and interested in that history. I'm sure Robert Zemeckis has heard of redlining and has heard and knows the history of housing and knows these issues. I don't know why they weren't used more constructively to actually tell the story of America in this movie, and instead we get this incredibly whitewashed version of American history with these very, very silly attempts at sort of diversity with characters that are given no, I mean, the non-white characters in this movie, as you said, have no agency. They are props. They are used to check boxes and to make arguments, but they are not treated as human beings in the same way that Paul Bettany and Tom Hanks and Robin Wright are treated as human beings.
I mean, that is assuredly true.
Assuredly true.
That is the case with this movie.
And this, this is it's cringeworthy boomer liberalism at its highest point. And here will not be making my list of the top 5 Robert Zemeckis movies.
No,
which we'll get to in the second hour.
No.
Now, on a brighter note. Let's talk about A Real Pain.
Hell yeah.
A Real Pain, written and directed by Jesse Eisenberg, who you know from as an actor in The Social Network, Squid and the Whale, Now You See Me.
That's a good movie.
The DP was Michael Dymek, and the movie stars Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, who's coming off a big hit with his role in Succession for television.
I've heard of it. Well, it's HBO.
And
it was
thank
HBO.
you. It's not TV, it's HBO. And they play cousins in this movie who used to be very close growing up, close as brothers, but have since drifted apart, and they have very sort of diametrically opposed personalities, but a lot of shared family history. You have Eisenberg as the sort of responsible, successful, buttoned-up family man, and then you have Culkin just doing Culkin, just like charismatic, aimless, millennial id, just run amok. And together, these two fellows decide to honor their beloved Jewish grandmother's memory by being part of this tour group through Poland that it's like a trauma tour, essentially. It visits different sites associated with the Holocaust, from the Jewish ghetto to the concentration camps. And during this tour, they interact with other members of the tour group. They work through a bunch of shit. They experience their family's traumatic history up close, and then they fly back to New York. And that is a real pain. Now, Joe, do you mind if I go first on this? Because I am dying to talk about this fucking movie.
Please, I didn't see it.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Joe, I'm about to take you on a fucking journey, baby. I'm about to take you on a fucking journey.
I thought I told you that. I'm so sorry. I didn't have time to see the film.
Well, I cannot wait for you to see this.
All right,
I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm not
Please.
trying to spoil
Hit
anything,
me.
okay? Because, Joe.
Yeah, no spoilers for once.
4 months now, 4 months, I've been saying, we've both been saying, that Harmony Korine's Aggro Drift is the best movie of 2024. Because...
Where's this going?
As far as I knew, as from movies I'd seen, it was the best movie of 2024.
What?
And this whole time I've been wondering, and we named it in the mid-year wrap up. We said it's the best movie of the year, and the whole time I'm like, man, is it gonna like sweep both of our big specials this year? Is it gonna be the #1 movie mid-year and end of year? Is Aggro Drift gonna go the distance? And then we saw, we had a Nora coming up, and we're like, ooh, and Nora's a contender. Nora's a contender. And look, Nora's great. It's probably gonna be my top 5 at the end of the year.
We'll see.
But it wasn't quite good enough to knock off Aggro Drift, baby.
Well, what is, Brad?
Well, I'm about to tell you.
What?
Because
What?
Joe,
Oh my God.
Jesse Eisenberg's A Real Pain is the best movie I've seen this year, baby.
Yeah!
And all it took for all of Harmony Korine's crazy, visionary, blow it all up and start over approach, it turns out that all it takes to be the best movie of 2024 is to have the best script of the year.
Oh, hell yeah.
And 2 exhilarating, heartbreaking performances, baby.
I love this, Brett.
And to my surprise, some masterful direction from Eisenberg.
I love this, Brett.
I knew the guy was talented. I did not know he was this talented.
I love this.
At the heart of this movie is Eisenberg. This movie's about a lot of things. It is incredible at the way we've talked about movies this year who have done a great job of doing themes, and movies that have done a bad, heavy-handed job of doing themes.
Here.
This movie does themes as well as you possibly can, because it is constantly turning in on itself, interrogating itself, pushing those themes, never accepting that we've reached the end, never accepting that we've reached like an answer or a solution, but pushing. And at the heart of this movie is Eisenberg interrogating his whole Eisenberg thing, because you get Eisenberg at full. He wrote the most Eisenberg character for himself.
I love full Eisenberg.
You are getting like millennial Woody Allen. You're getting introverted intellectual who's not so secretly like a massive narcissist. You're getting all of the stammering and the social awkwardness. This is like he wrote himself almost, if it wasn't so well performed and written, almost the level of parody of an Eisenberg character.
But you must mean almost, Brett. You're calling this the best film of the year.
Yes, because he then picks the absolute perfect like frenemy to play off in by giving Kieran Culkin the most Kieran Culkin character yet. And I gotta say, shout out to my real ones. We're going back to like Igby Goes Down, Kieran Culkin here.
Great movie.
It is a great movie. This is not, I mean, it's still the affect from Succession, but this is more of an Igby Goes Down character for Culkin.
He's a great actor. I didn't expect him to just do Roman over and over again. So it's like not quite Roman.
It's not quite. And here is, to me, what the movie is about. You set up the most Eisenberg and the most Culkin, and then the movie becomes this incredible, a theme that I didn't even know I really cared about, but it becomes this exploration of like extroversion and introversion and how those two things work in social situations, how they work when you're around new people, how you sort of like glom on to extroversion at first because it's like, oh, we're all strangers and this guy's doing all the talking, so let's fuel that. But then the extroversion becomes a little aggressive and too much because that person's oversharing, and then you kind of want to go hang out with the introvert a little bit. It is this incredible nuanced sort of exploration of how extroversion and introversion work together in unison, in antagonism of each other. And it is so nuanced, it feels like you're reading a novel. There are moments that are like so richly observed, you feel like you just read like a perfect paragraph in a book.
Wow.
But the movie itself does not feel like overwritten or heavy-handed. It's just so elegant and insightful and funny that you're just like, man, you just accomplished so much in so little time with just like performance and good lines and well executed direction. And the way in which Culkin's like unfiltered manic charisma makes him simultaneously the most popular person on the tour and the most abrasive, the one that like when he leaves the room, you talk shit about him, but then when he's in the room, you want to like be the one that he's talking to. You know, it's just so fucking smart about like social situations and social interactions. It's kind of
smart movie for
stunning.
adults.
Very smart movie for adults.
That's fun, but not too pretentious, but like enough to be self-aware.
Joe, you will feel this movie in your like gut, like in the deepest part of you. You will feel this movie. It is just so fucking real. It's so fucking real.
Like apropos of nothing. Yeah. When I watched the trailer, I was like, that looks really good. You know, like it looked really good. So I'm really happy to hear that it was really good.
I'll tell you what, like, and even another points column, I was like, I love the trailer. I watched like a full scene from it, and I was like a little underwhelmed.
You mean like before you went to the movie?
Before I went to the movie, you have to see these things in context. It's just because it was like a scene of Kieran like halfway through the movie, and I was just like, why is he being such a little bitch? And then when you watch the movie in context, oh my God, it plugs in so fucking well.
Funny.
It's so
Is it funny?
It's so funny. It's very, very funny. And then the flip side of Culkin's character, if you have Eisenberg sort of having this like dawning realization that nobody's like picking up on his introversion or really cares about it, and everyone just thinks he's the boring one. Whereas like he thinks he's like he's sort of Eisenberg. You think he's got all this stuff going on. He's like the heart of the movie. No one fucking like cares, and they're like deeply impacted by Culkin, who is like a mess. It's amazing the way he does this. It's so fucking good. And here's what I want to say too, because I think there will be a temptation to like categorize it as this, and I resoundingly and like firmly reject this characterization. This movie is not cringe comedy. Do not fucking classify it as fucking cringe comedy, okay? It is not cringe comedy because even though it is dealing with some of the tropes of cringe comedy, it is so humanist in the way that it approaches its themes that you are not cringing. You are leaning forward. You are leaning into this movie. You want more of it. You want to catch every move and every detail. It is taking the tropes of cringe comedy and making something new and better out of it. Fuck cringe comedy, it's dead. Long live a real pain, baby. The other major theme that is explored expertly in this movie is, of course, as the title suggests, pain. And specifically, the way that our lives, you know, consist of this constant interplay between these sort of like massive macrocosmic historical traumas being played out in front of us, you know, from whether that is the Holocaust or COVID or, you know, or racial violence or whatever it is. Our life is this interplay between these massive things and then all of our personal singular pains that we go through in our life. And this is where this is why ultimately this is my favorite movie of the year so far, is because the way it explores this theme makes it a movie of the moment as well. It is timeless in a lot of ways, but it is also a very interesting movie of the moment because it explores this tension between, like, you know, obviously all these people on this Holocaust tour, nothing in their lives will ever compare in terms of its severity or pain to the Holocaust. But the movie does this incredible thing where it dignifies all kinds of pain and says that all kinds of pain are valid in their own ways. They are real, whether it is at the level of a giant historical tragedy or if it's at the interpersonal level of a family and two cousins working through their shit. That all of this pain is valid and legitimate. And in fact, it is the thing that connects us and unifies us. It is the thing, almost everyone's like personality is born out of their pain and trauma, right? How they react to it or relate to it. It's usually not born out of your like successes or when someone said something nice to you. Your personality is probably built out of like when someone said something mean to you or when someone wasn't nice to you or when something bad happened to you, right? And so pain is the common denominator of human existence, the thing that unifies us all together. And the point that the movie is ultimately making is that if a human society is built around ignoring and not acknowledging pain because it perceives it as weakness, then that human society is destined for destruction. It is destined to eat itself because it is denying the most essential aspect of itself by not acknowledging its pain. Whereas like getting in touch with your pain, as uncomfortable as that can be, is what leads to self-awareness and is what leads to harmony and what leads to understanding. And it is just amazing. And it's also something that is like, but it's also not like a message movie. You don't leave the movie thinking like, oh, this movie has given me the tools to be a better person. Right. It is not that kind of movie at all. It ends on a very melancholy and real note, and it just perfectly sums up everything that you've just seen. And it is
excellent. Wow.
I think A Real Pain is Jesse Eisenberg's masterpiece, and it's the best movie I've seen this year.
Better than Niagara Drift.
For me, this is better than Aggro Drift.
Better than
this
La
movie.
Chimera.
Close, but better than La Chimera.
Better than Do Not Expect Too Much.
Again, close. These are all top 5. But something about A Real Pain was just so expertly
Better than
done.
Here?
It's better than Here, yes.
Damn.
I could definitely say
All
it's
right.
better than Here.
All right.
Yep. So right now, I got Real Pain in the number 1
Woo!
slot, baby.
I love that. We got a new king. Oh, man, now I got to go.
Everybody's got to go see it.
Damn.
And look, I would love to, like, this is a movie I want to talk about. I want to hear from people who didn't like it as much as me. I am down. I'm like obsessed with this movie, and I just want to talk about it.
I'm so excited. This is huge. We're getting to it, baby. We're getting to award season. It comes. It cometh.
This one hit me so fucking hard.
That's beautiful.
Hit me so
I'm
fucking
so excited.
hard. I was just fucking lapping up everything.
But you haven't seen Red 1 yet.
I have not yet seen Red 1.
Okay, so we don't know quite what the number 1's going to be, but I imagine
We've got Snowman.
Is Red 1 on the docket next week? Do I got to like instead of
2 weeks from now?
Okay,
Next week is
fair.
Heretic. The week after that is Red 1.
Okay,
But we're also gonna
I'm
lace
gonna
in some
watch-
award season stuff. So we got like Amelia Perez coming out on Netflix. We got some good stuff coming out.
great,
Yes. Yeah.
excellent.
Speaking of, let's see what we got for next week. What's coming up next week, baby? It is going to be Heretic.
No,
It's going to be another really sad movie called We Live in Time. Hopefully, we're going to try to see it. Some of these movies are kind of hard for us to get to because they're not like right around us. But we're going to try to see We Live in Time. And then Amelia Perez, I'm going to try to see in theaters. If I'm not able to do that, it comes out on Netflix November 13th, which is the Wednesday before next Thursday. So everybody can see it on Netflix before we talk about it, which would be a lot of fun.
you love Netflix now.
That is, I love Amelia Perez, baby.
Okay,
I love
all right.
Jacques Audiard. I love
Jacques
Selena
Audiard, too.
Gomez, baby.
I know.
So I cannot wait to
for
see. This one has.
This is amazing.
It's getting big awards
and
conversations.
I got to see A Real Pain.
And you guys,
And we got to see Juror number 2.
You guys see A Real Pain. Oh, and fucking Clint's Juror number 2. All right,
We'll get there. We got movies to crush,
Yes.
Brett.
Well,
we got a job to do. It's fine.
In between, like the next couple weeks is us sort of catching up on award season movies, watching whatever the studios dribble out. Because then we've got. In a couple weeks from now, we got Gladiator 2, Gladiator 2 and Wicked, and then Moana 2.
Fun.
But in between now and then, we're going to try to catch up on a lot of these sort of in-between movies, art house movies, award season movies, and we'll get you all caught up on what's going on, baby. It's going to be really exciting. I can't wait.
I can't wait.
And speaking of things that we do on this show, we're about to get into the second half of the show where we do fun stuff, and it's only for Patreon. You can sign up at patreon.com/moviesbaby. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial, see if you like it. You can sign up for free and just get alerts every time something new goes up there. And tonight on the second half, we are going to pick our top 5 movies directed by Robert Zemeckis. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very, very hard.
I'm going to win. It's not a contest.
It's not a contest.
I'm going to win.
You think you'll get more? You think you'll
My
win
points
more
will
arguments?
My points will
Okay,
win the
okay.
evening.
Because we do have to come up with one list.
Yeah,
you
that's
have your list, I have my list.
I
We have
do.
to come up with one collective list. It's an exercise in the social contract. It's an exercise. It's like A Real Pain.
It's like A Real Pain.
It's like you're Jesse Eisenberg. I'm Kieran Culkin. It doesn't map. I was trying, like, it really doesn't. 'Cause I flipped it and neither one really worked.
That's okay.
We're both sort of like, we're both like half. I think most people are. I'm like half Eisenberg and Culkin. You're half Eisenberg.
We all have a little Eisenberg and a little Culkin in us.
That's right.
That's
Everybody
beautiful.
has 2 wolves inside them. Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin.
We'd be so lucky. See you at the other half of the show.
See you there. Bye.